I'll tell you all about that later. It's Peter McIsaac, who's become a great friend of mine, and he is the president. He's going to give you a rundown as well. So please welcome Peter.
Woo!
Thanks, Paul, and thanks for the folks who put out the effort to invite us down. Independent Nova Scotia Initiative was originally Paul's idea, and he had a great idea because if we can put 8 to 12 independents in power here in Nova Scotia, if we can help facilitate that, and the election's close, those independents will control what happens to the future of the province for the next 4 years. They can unwind negative legislation that's hurting us all. They can stop mass unvetted immigration into the province. They can actually work towards fixing our roads. They can fix what's happening inside our education system that's destroying our kids. I mean, they can help actually fix some of the problems that this current government continues to make, the mistakes they make on an ongoing basis. Just one little thing that I'll throw because it just popped in my head is, is everybody here aware what Tim Houston's government did and took all your private medical information and gave it to Ottawa?
Yes, yes.
All of it. If you've ever been to a psychiatrist, if you've ever been to a doctor, if you've ever had anything that you didn't want to disclose, Tim Houston now has it. I know Tim Houston personally. He will use that against you. I'd say that with him standing here in front of me. I say lots of things to him in the past that he didn't like hearing. That's kind of why we parted ways, right? Because when I retired from government, I worked inside for 29 years. I made an attempt. I was asked by Jamie Bailey to run for the Provincial Conservative Party. And at the time, I was naive enough to believe that I could get inside regular politics and help fix the mess that I had dealt with in 29 years. Then I found out the powers that be knew they couldn't control me, so they worked to make sure that I didn't get elected. And so when Paul Westaver and Michael Zareski initially, when they talked about the idea of getting enough independents so that in a close race they could force the government into a minority position and force the rule of government for the next 4 years, I said, well, that's a great idea, Paul. And he said, how many seats do we need? He said, I think we'll need 7. And I said, well, why don't we work and help the people in the cross from one end of Nova Scotia to another, find 55 independent candidates and take them by storm? Because there was a couple of gentlemen just pulled in a car and they were asking me, well, how can they possibly make a difference? A couple of independents can't, but I can tell you that 6, 7, 8, a dozen or more can dramatically change the future of Nova Scotia. And here's one of the things is why we come to Cape Breton. I'm a Cape Breton. I grew up in Hawkesbury. And the only reason I'm up on the mainland has got something to do with a very fine lady that was dumb enough to take me in, right? So as a result of that, still this is home to me. And we, as the Independent Initiative, agree with what Archie McKinnon agrees with, and Father Maroon, most of the people sitting here agree with, that you guys are being shafted, especially down here when it comes to your equalization payments.
Yes.
If you want your fair share of the money, and we believe that Cape Breton Island should have it, it will not happen under any of the major parties. The only way to get it is to vote in enough independents in Nova Scotia that we can dominate what happens in the legislature. And then what happens is people say, well, how are you going to control an independent? And so I had a chance to talk a couple of times with Brian Peckford. Brian Peckford was former leader of Newfoundland, and he's the last living signatory to our Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And he agrees 100% with what we're doing and said the party system's broken and can't be fixed from within. He said, I support 100% what the Nova Scotia Independent Initiative is trying to accomplish. And so he said, you got to realize this, Peter, when you get independents in, they're independent by nature. They can't be told what to do, which is what you want. So what we're recommending is that you take independents and you pick them from your own group. The last person you want is the person who says, pick me, I want to be a politician. In all cases, you'll find out they're the wrong person because they want a pension, they want the perks. We want people, or we want you guys to find people that only want to do it because they realize it's a civic responsibility. I'm a father of 5 and a grandfather of 6. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's why I wrote that book Paul mentioned. By the way, it's called The Redneck Conservative. And in that, I lay our plan out. And why I'm doing that is before I get censored and shut down. I was shut out of X for 7 days last week. And man, you got to do a lot to get kicked off X now, right? So, but I can't be shut up. I just, nobody's going to shut me up. They can't do it to me right now. Right, I'm retired. I'm not worried about my business interests. If you want to find out what we're doing, it's in that book. But the reality of it is Brian Peckford said, Pete, you're going to have to get, how are you going to control people? And we suggest, he came up with the idea of get them to sign a community contract. And it's called a performance-based contract, where you say, here's what I want you to do. Here's the 5 planks, 6 planks. Here's the amount of time you have them accomplish them in. And if you don't, you're going to be in breach of contract, and we're going to be able to fire you. And for the first time in Canadian politics, if you could pick a good quality independent, and they'll sign that contract for you, then what happens is you can actually fire a politician in Canada who breaks their word. The ones who say, kind of like some of the people who are running for mayor against Archie that said, we're going to do this, and then they get in. Once they're elected, they do what they want. They're controlled by the party leader. They do exactly what they want to do, and they lie to you repeatedly, and then they count on your bad memory, and they come back before the next election and say, please hire me again. You can't hire these people. I'll give you an example, guys. If somebody won't sign a contract like that, a performance-based contract with them, why would you ever give them your vote? Ever. We haven't put it on our poster. The party is over. Party politics no longer works. If you guys will go out, and you got to remember, we all come from on this island from a long line of Celtic warriors. Battle-hardened Celtic warriors. If you got any Scot in you, mixed with some French, we all come from battle-hardened warriors down through thousands of years who flat out said we will not be pushed around anymore. That's how we ended up on this island in the first place. Do you know that if Cape Breton came together and voted in a half dozen independents, that you guys would be able to get your equalization money? What are they going to do? All you have to do is enough independents. They table legislation. And if the sitting government doesn't go along with your proposals, all you do is vote non-confidence, crash the government, and then let them go and run another election on the fact that they didn't want to do what was right and make sure that Cape Breton got the share of the money they were coming. So what we're asking for is that you guys come together, and I don't care what your differences are down this neck of the woods, right? You have to come together as communities from one end to another and work to put enough independence and power. The people that will make a promise to you that they're going to be by contract bound to fulfill, and that is to make sure you guys get what you want with your equalization payments. And the other thing I'm going to throw in something for Archie is that if Archie's the mayor, he supports everything that we're talking about here and realizes the power in Cape Breton is unity through numbers. And the unity through numbers, every community that we go into, from Yarmouth to down here, once they understand how the independence, the power they have and what they can create, we walk away from people. Everybody starts off with their arms crossed and their legs crossed. And by the end of we're done, they're sitting at the front of the seat going, this might actually work. And people are going to go, people will vote for the party, right? If my dad knew I was doing this now, Dad's gone now, but he'd be saying, come on now, you got to vote conservative. Well, I'm not voting for anybody who will, on a repeated basis, I'm 66, they've been lying to me since I was 6, at least that many years. And I'm sick and tired of it, and I'm assuming everybody here is too, guys. Yeah. So for this next upcoming election, you actually got a chance, and you got enough time to get yourself organized, find good quality people from one end of the island to another. And our job is not to come down and coordinate this for you. It's just to kind of incentivize you folks to realize there is a solution. And all people have to do is turn off the TV, stop watching Netflix, buy a few less beer, right? And then get out there and start talking to people when you're at Tim Hortons and that, say, you know what, we don't have to put up with this anymore. There is a solution. And then find some people who want to work towards you. Father Maroon's crew, those guys are willing to help. The Cape Breton Autonomy crew is now sees the wisdom of this approach. Everybody down here is at a position now they're ready to come together and make changes. And so it's just a matter of you've got a whole year ahead of you. Then don't get me wrong, Tim Houston, he's backpedaling right now hard. He's named in a number of lawsuits. His career is in jeopardy. But the reality of it is he could still call an election next month.
That's right.
So you don't have any time to waste. This is one of them things. This is do or die. Either you get this back now, or we're going to lose the province. If we had another 4 years of the current government, irregardless of what the Premier's telling you in the polls, that's a flat-out lie. You can go in any different place and you'll find out that he does not have. So upset of the way government's been run here in the province that they're willing to make a change. So in order to keep our hides covered here so that we can say what we want to say, we found out that if I advertise a book, I can say anything I want. And I can't be sued, and nothing else can happen. So my book, once again, is called The Redneck Conservative. It lays out our plan on how to do stuff with independence. And there's a bunch of crazy stories in there, and the only people that'll really be able to relate to it are Cape Bretoners. Because I talk about, you know, I got stopped one time, I think I had 13 open liquor tickets at the Rotary in Hastings. So I hear a lot of people laughing. That's back when tickets were $10 and $3 court costs, for those of you who may have imbibed a little over the years. But it's an interesting read, and because I just threw that in there, that gives us license to say whatever we want to say. So you can follow us more at independentns.net. There's some changes going on that website. If it doesn't open up now, you'll find stuff later. And then once again, what Bobby Lee Dillman was able to do when he stuck his neck out up in when he wanted to run in Pictou West, and Tim Houston knew precisely what he was doing. He called that election with 1 week left in before tax season, knowing we would never be able to get the paperwork that we needed. And somebody worked together, and we're going to be able to prove that there was collusion inside the government. And I hope a bunch of people get fired, to tell you the truth, really. Our job is to help end corruption in Nova Scotia. You guys vote for the standard parties. You may as well say, yeah, we love corruption. Well, we'd like, we didn't get enough in the last 4, 8, 10, 12 years. We'd like some more for the next 4. Or you can take a chance, find yourself a good candidate, vote independent, and actually create history. Because right now, what we're doing here in Nova Scotia is being followed countries all over the world. I was on a Zoom call yesterday, and there was 9 different countries represented on that meeting, wanting to know what's happening here in Nova Scotia. And they said, if you can pull it off there, it becomes the blueprint for the rest of the world on how to make this happen.
Hear, hear.
So this is way bigger than you think it is. And you people can all be a part of it. And you can either be, like I said, you can either be a part of a really great thing, or you can sit back and complain. So now you've got one of 2 choices. You can either do something, right, and maybe fail, but you'll fail greatly in trying. Or you can do nothing and complain for another 4 years. So on that note, I think who's supposed to come up next, Dar?
Me.
If you'd like to, I'd like to bring up Darlene, who's actually, she's an ex-vet, right?
Yep.
She's ex-military, and we'd like to have her come up. And then I'd also like to bring up, after Dar, Bobby Lee Dillman for a couple of minutes.
Okay, wait. Why don't you introduce Bobby Lee Dillman, and he can say a few words after you.
Okay, so thanks for showing up, guys. We really appreciate it. When we leave, we're heading right back up to the city again, back up to Halifax. We picked up Bobby Lee on the way through. He stuck his neck out. If it wasn't for what Bobby Lee did, he exposed the crack in the government infrastructure, because if we didn't know that they were going to use that against us, we'd have been up the creek here in the next election. But they showed their hand. We found what the weakness is. Through efforts of Michael Zareski and Paul Westhaver, they figured out how to work the system to make it work, take their rules, use them against them in our favor. And that's a direct result of what Bobby did. So Bobby Dillman, come on up, buddy.